Good afternoon, and welcome to the North Carolina Department of Commerce's First in Talent Town Hall. First, I'd like to thank Cisco for hosting us today in their Customer Building Briefing Center here with many of their colleagues. We appreciate your hospitality. Members of the Commerce team spent the morning learning about Cisco's Rural Broadband Center and supports that Cisco offers to service providers. Cisco's efforts are helping to expand broadband access to many rural communities across North Carolina, key infrastructure for living, working, and doing business. The team also visited with an instructor and students from Cisco's Networking Academy, an educational program that teaches participants the IT and cybersecurity skills that this is what's needed to enter the information technology workforce. These Cisco initiatives are aligned with the First in Talent strategies to expand broadband access and affordability and to lead the nation in work-based learning. Thank you, Cisco, for your partnership. I'd also like to welcome our audience members and key stakeholders who are here in attendance with us today. I'd like to thank and welcome all of our virtual attendees. Thank you for joining us in this webinar. Please use the Q&A feature in the WebEx to ask questions throughout the session. We'll do our best to answer those questions and also have a follow-up in the event that we are unable to answer those questions during this town hall. During today's town hall, we will celebrate statewide accomplishments from fiscal year 2022 to 2023. And we recognize our partners who are implementing the strategies in our First in Talent plan across the state. The strategies are helping to prepare North Carolina's communities, residents, and businesses for success. One of our most recent and exciting accomplishments was announced just 2 weeks ago. CBS named North Carolina America's top state to do business for the second year in a row. Congratulations to everyone on this major accomplishment. This recognition is a result of not only your hard work and your commitment to a better North Carolina, but is also a result of Governor Cooper's leadership and statewide collaboration from North Carolina's educational institutions, our economic and workforce development partners, our world-class workforce, and many other stakeholders, businesses, and all of the residents of this state. In the CNBC study, workforce was the most heavily elevated and evaluated factor. North Carolina not only took the top spot overall, but we ranked first in workforce as well. Thanks to Governor Cooper's North Carolina Job Ready initiative, North Carolina's workforce is well educated, skilled, diverse, and ready to fill jobs today and tomorrow. And we are making headway on the state's goal to ensure that by 2030, 2 million North Carolinians earn a high-quality credential or post-secondary degree, thanks to our partnership with My Future NC and organizations like Student U, which helps connect first-generation college students in Durham Public Schools to the resources they need to successfully enroll in college. Preparing students for jobs in high-demand sectors in fields that are booming today, it starts in K-12 classrooms. Our K-12 public education system prioritizes work-based learning and provides opportunities for students to earn industry-valued credentials while still in high school. Thank you to the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction and their efforts to prepare K-12 students to enter the workforce or the post-secondary pathway of their choice. Leah Carper, the 2022 North Carolina Burroughs Wellcome Fund Teacher of the Year, is here today. Leah is an English teacher who I had the pleasure of meeting, and she's a teacher in the public school system at Northern Guilford High School, where she develops lesson plans that align with the required standards while integrating character education, conflict resolution, and the durable or soft skills needed to be successful in today's workforce. And Leah is a product of the public school system herself. She is here today representing public school teachers who serve in our communities and love to teach our children every day. Thank you, Leah, for your continued service. As a daughter of educators, I know firsthand that teachers are the superheroes. Leah, you are a superhero. You see things that others don't see. You recognize the possibilities that others don't realize. You recognize the possibilities that many individuals don't realize. So you truly are an exemplary hero. For North Carolina to remain a state that is good for jobs and good for families, we need to enable more people are able and capable of entering our workforce. We understand that early care and education is important and is really the workforce behind the workforce. And it is critical to the success of our communities and our economy. We must invest more. We must do better in education on all fronts. And we must forward policies and vote for those who have the power to make legislation. We must vote for those who prioritize education, who prioritize teachers. Education is the linchpin for a thriving economy. Having childcare enables people to get the training and education they need to find jobs that pay family-sustaining wages. Later today, you will hear from two child care providers, Arlene Yates, the owner of the Learning Center of Perquimans County, and Shannon Pickett, the owner of Little People Preschool in Wake County. Thank you, Arlene and Shannon. To all of our partners, we appreciate it. And to our partners in the governor's office and the Department of Human and Health Services who are working tirelessly to address child care shortage in North Carolina, thank you for your work. North Carolina is also experiencing a shortage of direct care workers. Based on our Labor and Economic Analysis Division's projected job openings for 2021 through 2030, direct care workers like registered nurses, licensed practitioner nurses, represent the most needed healthcare jobs in North Carolina. In partnership with Secretary Cody Kinsley and the Department of Health and Human Services, we created the Caregiving Workforce Strategic Leadership Council to address the shortages in direct care labor, direct care nurses, and other caregiving positions, and to keep our workforce healthy. Secretary Kinsley is a fierce champion, and I'm proud to partner with him on this work. Later today, you will hear from a panel of workforce leaders that will address two of our top priorities: dismantling barriers for populations that are underrepresented in the workforce, like those with disabilities, transition in military, or those who've previously been incarcerated, and increasing the workforce, increasing access to work-based learning opportunities for all. Companies and CEOs have realized that their ability to support an adaptive, diverse, and skilled workforce is the best strategy to succeed in today's competitive environment. In July of 2022, I hired the state's first business relations manager, who is responsible for partnering with companies to increase access to work-based learning, to expand diversity hiring, to increase the utilization of women and minority-owned businesses, and to promote sustainable business practices. This afternoon, you will hear from Conrad Wyniski. And please forgive me, Conrad. I work with you often, and I just blew your name, the pronunciation of your name. So everyone just remember Conrad. Conrad is Commerce's business relationship manager. And I'd like to recognize Angie Crawford Easterday, the CEO of Boomerang, who is here today and who is one of the first businesses to partner with us on this new corporate citizenship initiative. In a few minutes, leaders on the business panel will discuss additional initiatives to foster high-quality work and productive work environments that promote talent development and also promote business growth. The business panel will also discuss ways to foster innovation and support companies or regions that want to capitalize on new funding opportunities offered by the federal government. Last year, companies like Toyota, Wolfspeed, Eli Lilly, and Macy's chose to expand or relocate in North Carolina because of our shovel-ready sites and broad region infrastructure programs. They also chose North Carolina because of our excellent workforce. Rural counties across North Carolina are better equipped to attract companies and good jobs to their communities due to recent investments from our Rural Economic Development Division's Rural Grant Program. Last year, $113 million was awarded to support the creation of about 4,200 jobs. Investments and initiatives from our partners like the Golden Leaf Foundation, the North Carolina Rural Center, North Carolina Department of Information Technology, and the North Carolina groups of nonprofits across the state continue to make North Carolina a great state to live, to work, and to play. Now, many of you know I am from rural North Carolina, Belhaven, North Carolina. So I know firsthand what's possible for rural North Carolina, and I also recognize why many people came running to rural North Carolina during the toughest time of the pandemic when they could get away because of the beauty, because of the people, because of the excellent opportunity and experience that we offer when you visit rural North Carolina. So these grants will surely help build up the main streets, help build communities, and also offer jobs to the residents in those communities. Our third panel today will focus on preparing communities across the state to be more competitive, growing and attracting businesses and a talented workforce. The community panel members will highlight statewide efforts to expand broadband access and physical infrastructure needed to attract residents, workers, and businesses. This month marks 2 years since the Department of Commerce released the First in Talent Plan on behalf of the state. The First in Talent Plan is intended to be a 4-year plan active through 2024. We're now at the halfway point of this plan, just over 2 years. We've partnered with state agencies, universities, non-government organizations, and the business community to successfully initiate or complete activities related to 32 of the 44 tactics in the plan. That's just shy of a 75% completion rate to date. That's excellent. Thanks to all the stakeholders and those that I mentioned. And also thank you to the leadership of all of the members of the Department of Commerce who work diligently every day to bring this plan to reality. The division within Commerce Department, we've recentered our program delivery to align with key themes and strategies in the First in Talent Plan, including strategies we will hear today, like supporting job seekers who face barriers. We developed an internal performance plan that sets metrics for internal programs that are critical to the success of the First in Talent Plan. The Division of Workforce Solutions established and is meeting their goal to ensure that at least 76% of job seekers served in the state's NC Works Career Centers identify as having barriers. Now, our Labor and Economic Analysis Division continues to leverage nccareers.org to provide quality career information, labor market data, educational information, and employment and training resources to students, workers, and job seekers. Last fiscal year, the number of individuals served by nccareers.org continued to exceed previous years with more than 397,000 users and 3.5 million page reviews. The Commission and the Commerce Department, the Division of Employment Security, was recently awarded $6 million for an equity grant. And this grant will address many areas that we have discussed and will discuss today, but it will definitely focus in on impacting equitable access to state unemployment insurance benefits, including faster receipt of payment, public awareness of program, and equity challenges pertaining to unemployment. North Carolinians across the state are reaping the benefits of these new initiatives that support our workforce, businesses, and communities. During today's First in Talent Town Hall, you will hear 3 panel conversations centered around the 3 goals in our strategic plan. The first panel is moderated by Chet Mottershead, the Assistant Secretary of the Division of Workforce Solutions. Assistant Secretary Mottershead leads the team at the Division of Workforce Solutions that provides services and job seekers and helps employers find qualified talent. Chet, at this time, I will turn it over to you to begin our workforce panel. Thank you.
Secretary. And before we start, I'd like to thank Secretary Sanders for her leadership and putting workforce development as such a high priority for the department and the state. I'd also like to thank my boss, Chief Deputy Secretary Jordan Wishart, for his support. In our panel today, we're going to be focused on goal number 1 of the First in Talent Plan, which is to prepare North Carolina's workforce for career and opportunity and entrepreneurial success. Specifically, we're going to talk about 2 strategies within that first goal. The first one is strategy number 2, which is lead the nation in work-based learning engagement. And the next strategy is strategy number 4, increase labor force participation through workforce enhancements to better support populations with barriers to employment. So when we talk about work-based learning, that's really a whole suite of programs that we at the Department of Division of Workforce Solutions and our partners engage in. That includes apprenticeship, internships, on-the-job training, work-based learning, work experience, job shadowing, and a host of other programs. We know that work-based learning is critically important because it gives students and new job seekers the skills that employers need, but then also it helps those new employees with soft skills that are going to benefit them throughout their career. Like I said earlier, one of the roles of the Division of Workforce Solutions is to support the 20 local workforce boards across the state, and they are the delivery vehicle for these work-based learning programs. The division also uses work-based learning for economic development projects. We have our NC Job Ready Workforce grants. And what we do is take these grants and push those out to the local workforce board so they can engage with employers involved in economic development projects to either locate in North Carolina or expand. And so we're excited about that program as well. And these are all companies that are involved in an economic development project. We also practice work-based learning here at the Division of Workforce Solutions. We've got 6 interns in our internship program, and most of those are housed across the state. They're doing a fantastic job, and we feel like this is a great way for us to try to grow the pipeline for future workforce leaders. The second strategy we're going to talk about today is related to populations with barriers to employment. When we talk about individuals with barriers to employment, we think about opportunity youth. We think about the disabled and veterans and their spouses that have barriers to employment. Those are just a few of the number of job seekers with barriers to employment. The career centers, the NC Works career centers across the state help these job seekers overcome these barriers. And they also work with those employers to help them look at these untapped talent pools. I think that's critically important, especially in this tight labor market. We've received federal funds from the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, that we've targeted various job seekers with barriers to employment. And those include the reentry population and also job seekers with substance abuse disorders. And then also we've targeted small businesses that we can help with work-based learning, because we feel like it's really important for work-based learning opportunities to be accessible for everyone. To talk more about this subject today, we've got a fantastic panel. First is a teammate of mine at the Division of Workforce Solutions, is Eric Haddock, and he is our reentry coordinator. Next is Trey Michael. Trey is the Senior Director for Career and Technical Education for the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. And then finally is my close friend, Danielle Frazier, who is the President and CEO of Charlotte Works, and she's one of our 20 workforce boards that we partner with on a daily basis. So really appreciate y'all being here today. I'd like to start off the group by asking our panelists to tell us a little bit about your organization's efforts to increase work-based learning programs, especially for populations that may be facing barriers or underserved, as noted in our First to Talent plan. Eric, do you want to start us off?
Absolutely. So with the reentry population, one of the big things that we do in helping with the work-based learning is partnering with our 20 workforce development boards and providing a little extra coverage for the workforce for the training with federal bonding. When somebody does on-the-job training or work experience or internship, we can do federal bonding if they have previously been incarcerated or justice involved. In doing that, they're able to get up to a $5,000 bond, just in case anything incidental happens, or that it helps the business kind of be more at ease with possibly hiring somebody that's been justice involved in the past. And the other aspect, the other pillar, I call them our two pillars, is WOTC, work opportunity tax credit, that businesses can get for hiring somebody who's been justice involved. And what that does, again, it helps the businesses kind of be more at ease as somebody who's possibly been in justice involved in the past. And it allows them to get per person that they have hired to be able to get that tax credit. Those are my two big pillars that we talk about when it talks about that. But I think the big part of it is our relationship that we have with the workforce development boards, with the local reentry councils, with DAC, DPS, in creating and really understanding what positions are out there so that we can more educate the people who have been justice involved in getting training and being a part of that pool, actually being a part of the interview process and understanding what the talents that they need or the skill sets that they need, and working with the boards to educate the boards on some of the things that are happening throughout the state, from the mountain regions to the beach, to be able to get those participants the opportunity to be able to be involved in work-based learning throughout the state.
That's terrific. Thanks, Eric. Trey?
Well, I'd first like to say thank you, Chet and Secretary Sanders, for allowing us to be here today. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you to Cisco for hosting us, because one of our first credentials that we onboarded many, many years ago was actually Cisco for our students to take. And they were a wonderful company that provided a lot of resources and training for teachers and whatnot for our students. This is very near and dear to my heart. I have a child that's in high school, a child that's in middle school, and my wife is a middle school teacher. And I am very fortunate that I believe that we have a strong system of public education here in the state of North Carolina. And our program in career and technical education really seeks to focus on how we can provide strong work-based learning opportunities to all of our children, grades 5 through 12. You had mentioned job shadowing and whatnot, career fairs, lots of career activities for our younger students. But then we also offer some of the excellent career academic credits to our high school students, and things such as apprenticeship, pre-apprenticeship, internship, cooperative education, and something that's very unique to North Carolina, which is what we call the entrepreneurial experience. Those children who take a course sequence and have an affinity towards starting their own business one day, potentially, and we want them to stay in North Carolina and, of course, grow. our local communities. Our approach is that a student will be ready to enroll, enlist, or be gainfully employed post-graduation if they have a really strong foundation in content knowledge and a discipline, a course sequence, potentially a concentrator. If they earn a strong, aligned credential that is of value to the workforce, that's aligned to that course and content, that they participate in one of our career technical student organizations, and then lastly, that they really cap that experience off in their career with a solid work-based learning experience that provides them that wonderful experience out in the real world, learning some of the durable skills that make them such a productive long-term employee.
Terrific. Thanks, Trey. Danielle?
Well, first, thank you again for the opportunity to be here today with you all and to also be a part of a conversation that is near and dear to me, and especially around the topic of work-based learning. My career actually started in high school when I had an internship in the Michigan Works Career Center. So I had no idea it was going to bring me 23 years plus working in workforce development, which has been an amazing career. And so workforce development to me is not just about an experience or a job. It's about a gateway to opportunity, and especially for young people in our communities that may lack that access. And so at Charlotte Works, we prioritize work-based learning. Over the year, there's about 1,100 work-based learning experiences that our young people will experience, whether that's an internship, an apprenticeship, an on-the-job training, or hearing an industry leader come and speak about the job. We find it very valuable that a young person know what they don't want to do just as much as knowing what they do want to do. And so we have great relationships with our business community because we cannot do this without our private sector employers that are also very invested in growing our own talent pipeline. We always talk about the talent shortage and the skills gap, but I think that the skills gap also starts from the interest and awareness gap. And so it's critical that our young people know what are careers now, what are they in the future, and they get as much exposure of the hands-on so that they know how to navigate their education and their career journeys.
It's terrific. Thank you. As the Secretary mentioned earlier, North Carolina has been ranked #1 state for business by CNBC for the second year in a row. Yay, North Carolina. And just want to ask our panelists to talk about how programs you operate help our workforce for these high demand jobs that are coming down the pike here.
Absolutely. With us, as I spoke about the federal bonding WOTC, but it's really getting the information of fear or just not really understanding what it is for somebody who's been just as involved and the skill set of the population of that people. When we start really talking about, we just went through the pandemic and the great resignation and just really trying to get talent to all these great businesses that are coming here, that we don't miss that population of skilled people and people who are able to learn skills and to help them by doing on-the-job training or work-based learning or those opportunities. So by continuously educating, communicating, and partner with other entities throughout the state to talk to businesses with the economic developers to get them to really understand that that population is a population that can be utilized for high-skilled positions, livable wage positions is a must. And it's something that we're very passionate about doing. Sometimes you can just, it oozes off of the people that work throughout the career centers. And when you go into a career center, you can actually really see it when talking specifically about this population as well as the youth. These two populations seems to kind of really be passionate about that.
Terrific. Trey.
Great. And last year, we were really challenged by our Superintendent of Public Instruction, Catherine Truitt, who asked us to really revisit all of the ways that we look at our programs across North Carolina as she implemented what we call the Year of the Workforce, which I think is very appropriate to mention here in this panel. During this time, Career and Technical Education took the opportunity to really revisit our strategies to make sure that we aligned our local career and technical education programs and programmatic offerings to the needs of our local workforce demands. And at the same time, we took the opportunity at the State Department to really make sure that what we offer, from career pathways to courses, to standards, et cetera, align to state needs as well. And we're extremely excited to see some pending legislation around career development plans for middle school students. And you had mentioned nccareers.org, which we see as a vital partner to that end in preparing our young people and helping them plan. We believe that the best way to fill the high demand career opportunities in this state is to really help our students that are in our public schools become very, very aware of the options and opportunities that they have through work-based learning, through the courses, through credentials, and so forth, that they could be a viable option to fill those careers in the future. You know, as they know more, they can plan better. And as they plan better, they can cut the cost and the timeline to entry into that workforce, and they can fill those vacancies from within. Wouldn't it be a wonderful thing to be looking back in a few years and think that all of our vacancies are met by our public school students, particularly in some of our more rural destinations where there's such a great need? We'd love for them to stay at home and work at home.
Great, great. Danielle?
Well, we have been a very fortunate state to post-pandemic, I think, to still be a high business and growth attraction. But we do know that there is a gap still with the skills that are needed to fill the vacant jobs in our communities. So how we prepare individuals for high demand jobs are just that. We start with the demand. Every year we evaluate where the data is, where the jobs in demand are, where the industries are now within the next 3 to 5 years. And everything that we do, we plan from that, and everything that we program, services we provide. And then we validate that with our business community too. And so making sure that the data is actually relevant for our areas. And so we provide short-term training scholarships every year. And so that's driven based on the data that we have on industries in demand. We've gotten away many, many years ago from the train and pray model that you're probably very familiar with. And so we want to make sure where we train our individuals and our job seekers that there's actually a job at the end. And so we have very close relationships with our businesses, ensuring that businesses know that they can pull talent from our programs. And we provide training in healthcare, in technology, in professional services, all of the in-demand jobs and industries in our community. The other part, and that everyone has already talked about it, is the essential skills and the soft skills, what we formerly have called it. But these are skills that are very critical to businesses just as much as the technical skills are. And so we provide that essential skills training around communication, around teamwork, now adaptability in a post-pandemic world, right? And so ensuring that our talent has those essential skills as well to help them prepare for these jobs in demand.
That's terrific. Danielle, I'd like to stay with you for just a second because the local workforce board partnership is so important to us at the Division of Workforce Solutions. And, you know, Secretary Sanders mentioned we've got the goal of looking at underserved communities and populations with barriers to employment, and our target of 77% of our customer base that are in underserved communities or have these barriers to employment that we're serving them. What are some of the things that Charlotte Works is doing to help achieve that goal?
Yeah, so as a community as a whole, from our private sector to public sector to nonprofit community, we've all been focused on increasing economic mobility and addressing where those systemic gaps have been that may have kept certain under-resourced individuals away from access. And so we shifted our model about 7 years ago to look at where are the areas in our community that are high poverty, high unemployed areas, and then also looking at those specific individuals that we know have had challenges in obtaining sustainable employment. So that's our justice involved, that's our opportunity youth, our veterans, our individuals with disabilities. And so we wanted to make sure we leveraged new and our existing and new relationships in the community that are actually doing and providing services in, so to speak, people's backyard. And so it was no longer the mantra of, if you build it, they'll come. It was, no, we have to take our services to our job seekers. And so we were very strategic in where we placed our career navigators. We have a great relationship with our Sheriff McFadden, and he allowed us to place a navigator within the detention center, helping individuals that will return into the community, helping them with job skills and access to training, actually, with our great community college partner with Central Piedmont. We have career navigators in our libraries and in our county community resource centers and a number of other partners within the community. You know, this is about inclusion, and this is about ensuring that every individual in our community has access to the resources to obtain sustainable employment, but it's also helping businesses to deepen and widen their talent pools for individuals that may not have always rose to the top in their sourcing of their talent. So that is where our priority is, and it will continue to be there for the years, and I'm sure the future to come too.
That's so important. Meeting the customer where they are.
That's
right. That's so important. Just as we're beginning to wrap up here, just wanted to give everybody a chance to talk about what do you see as a key message or a priority for your organization?
Absolutely. So we do have some major priorities going on currently. So we have a couple grants that we're using, and we're partnering with workforce development boards throughout the state. One of the newest one is the Fierce Fellows Grant, where we were talking about soft skills. It's where we're helping individuals who've been just involved get soft skills. And right now we have Capital Area Workforce Development Board has been hard, and then the mountains have come aboard to be a part of that grant as well as one of the big grants we have is the ARPA grant. Chet spoke about that earlier, that we're utilizing. And the biggest one we have right now currently is the Proud grant, where we're actually doing something that hasn't been done before. We're going into the Butner prison, and we're actually providing workforce development services to the inmates while they're there. And then we'll be able to follow them outside to when they transition. If they're within 6 to 3 months of transitioning out, we stay with them, and then they come into the Workforce Development Board as they transition in. So it's a smooth gap for that population. We're really excited about that, and that's Capital Area, Durham, and Cartar areas partnered to be a part of that program.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that Proud grant too, because we've got that one federal facility up in Butner that we're really going to be able to leverage that population and really focus some resources on how we can engage that population and help them transition. And I think we're going to get a lot of really good best practices out of that too.
Really
exciting. Trey?
Well, I think it's paramount for us in K-12 public education to really make sure that every child has a great opportunity and access to all the programs that can help prepare them for the workforce. Things like nccareers.org, things like work-based learning at multiple levels, earning credentials of value. And I think it's very, very important that each teacher understand that every interaction with a child can help guide that child down the path to future preparedness for the workforce. And it's also very important to us that parents be very, very involved in their child's career awareness experiences, and that children become very informed about those opportunities so that they can make really good decisions and fill those jobs in North Carolina a little bit quicker so we can continue to build our base.
That's Trey and I were on a committee earlier in the week, NC Workforce Credentials, and really are focusing in on how we can all work together as organizations to get those short-term credentials, have our IT systems talk together and make sure those credentials are of value to employers, and that we really feel good about the progress we're making there on that front.
Very important.
Danielle?
I may sound like a broken record, but I'll sum it up in 3 words: awareness, accessibility, and inclusion. And I think it's critical that everyone in our community knows, again, what are the career opportunities and pathways, how they access the resources and services to get that credential or to enroll into the education that's needed, and that how are we continuing to create an inclusive workforce that every individual has access to sustainable employment.
That's terrific. Well, we really appreciate everybody's taking time to meet on this panel again, and thanks again to Secretary Sanders for this opportunity to showcase some of the good things that are going on across the state in workforce development. And now we're going to hear a special message from our early childhood providers and partners. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Caroline Sullivan, the Executive Director of the North Carolina Business Committee for Education, the education nonprofit in the Office of the Governor. And we know that early childhood education is important to our early childhood teachers, but this poses a barrier for many who want to join the field. So this year, the North Carolina Business Committee for Education, the Office of the Governor, and HHS partnered to launch Building Bright Futures, an apprenticeship program for early childhood educators. This allows students to learn and earn, getting more education in the field while they're working at local childcare centers. Building Bright Futures just started in January. We are already in 20 counties and growing fast, and I am delighted to introduce y'all to Shannon Pickett, the owner of Little People Preschool in Raleigh. Shannon is a fantastic early childhood educator, a passionate advocate for the field, and Wake County's first apprenticeship sponsor. Shannon?
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I am excited to be here to speak on behalf of so many early childhood educators within our field. Our field is necessary. Our field is valuable to the community, to parents, to students, and to our future. So we absolutely love when this partnership was presented to us for Building Bright Futures. And it's a way for us to connect that pipeline that is necessary and vital for our field. So having our pre-apprentices be able to come in while in high school, right? Imagine you being in the field that you're in and having the experience, the opportunity to be able to build your foundation from high school, right? And so we're able to have that partnership and that connection because experience is necessary and experience is valuable. It allows for our pre-apprentices to say, you know, I really feel as though this is the field for me. And let me tell you, for those of us who are childcare owners or directors or admin or even parents, you want someone to be in the classroom with your child, with your children who see their potential, right? And they're able to foster a thriving learning environment. They're able to handle those problems and those conflict resolutions. We are a preschool that happens all day long, right? And having communication and also being an inclusive preschool as well. So we value all of our students, right? Because they are diverse and that diversity makes us unique, but that is also the world that we live in. Also our apprentices, it's amazing to see and experience a newness. This is something bright and enlightening for us as educators to be able to have those who really desire and are committed to our field, committed to their profession and committed to leading well. And the sponsorship is amazing and it's necessary for all of us. So for those who began this movement and this charge, for those of us within the field, we want to applaud you for not giving up, for continuing this, and just know that this is necessary for our futures because these children become our next leaders, right? And so Building Bright Futures, we're excited to be partnered with us at Little People Preschool and so many other preschools throughout the counties. And we're excited to see it expand to all 100 counties in our amazing state of North Carolina. So all right, so next you will hear from Ms. Marquita Welton, who will introduce the business panel.
Thank you, Shannon and Caroline, for highlighting your commitment to early childhood education. Quality childcare provides families with the care they need and enables more people to enter the workforce and meet the talent needs of North Carolina businesses. So thank you for what you do. Good afternoon. I'm Marquita Welton, Chief of Staff with the North Carolina Department of Commerce. This panel is focused on the second goal in the First in Talent Plan, which is to prepare North Carolina's businesses for success by attracting and growing a talented workforce. So businesses across North Carolina are committed to investing in the workforce by offering talent development programs and supports like child care and other family-friendly policies that help them recruit and retain talent. In a moment, we'll hear from a panel of experts that partner with businesses to help them find the talent they need, grow their businesses, or make investments in the communities where they operate. Now, you heard Secretary Sanders give a prelude to who you'll hear from now, which is Conrad. So I'm pleased to introduce two of our panelists, Conrad Wisniewski, the North Carolina Department of Commerce's Business Relationship Manager, and also Dr. Jenny Harris, Executive Director of Business Services in the Division of Workforce Solutions, who will share more in a moment. But this panel will also focus on strategy 8 in the First in Talent Plan, which is to invest in key production sectors that provide critical technologies and supply chains to fuel and safeguard our state and national economies. On that note, I'm pleased to introduce our third panelist, Dr. John Harden. He's the Executive Director of the Office of Science, Technology, and Innovation, who will spend time today highlighting North Carolina's leadership in a different supply chain, the semiconductor industry. But I cannot recognize Dr. Harden without acknowledging his contribution to the development of another industry in North Carolina, and that is the offshore wind energy. Dr. Harden, in partnership with the Assistant Secretary of Clean Energy for the North Carolina Department of Commerce, Jennifer Munt, has and continues to play a role in the emergence of the offshore wind industry here in our state. The governor and North Carolina Department of Commerce recognize that North Carolina has the greatest potential for offshore wind energy generation of any state on the East Coast. Our central location on the East Coast means that we can support responsible development of offshore wind energy up and down the entire seaboard. And our central location also means that North Carolina has the largest manufacturing workforce in the Southeast to support the Eastern Seaboard, with more than 455,000 manufacturing employees. We are well positioned to secure our place as a leader in the offshore wind supply chain while attracting offshore wind related jobs and investments to the state. So I'd like to take a moment to thank Dr. Harden for his role in helping prepare North Carolina to take advantage of this great opportunity that's before us in the offshore wind energy sector. But thank all of you for being here and for the work that you do for our First in Talent business panel. Now, the first question I have for each of you, the second goal in the First in Talent plan is to prepare North Carolina businesses for success by growing and attracting a talented workforce. Can you share with us how your organizational program helps businesses meet their workforce needs? And Conrad, I'm going to start with you, if you don't mind kicking it off.
Sure. Thank you very much, Marquita, and thank you everyone for joining us today. What we do within Commerce is we connect businesses to wonderful partners that we have here in the community and the state. And those partners include universities, the community college systems, HBCUs, as well as the workforce boards that were previously mentioned and workforce experts like Jenny here. My job as the business relationship manager is to help companies connect to these resources that we have here within the state. And these resources will provide companies with the tools they need to thrive here. And if there's something that companies are looking or missing, please feel free to reach out to me. As the business relationship manager, it's my job here to help you thrive. And we want North Carolina to be the best place for business and businesses to be the best place for North Carolinians.
Thank you, Conrad. Dr. Harris.
I think at the Division of Workforce Solutions, the biggest opportunity is to meet with employers. We do the the commission, the NC Works Commission does the employer needs survey. So we gather a lot of data from employers on what they need from us to grow. The other initiative that we have within our division is the sector strategies, really focusing on industry sector strategies, regardless of what the industry is, whether it's advanced manufacturing or healthcare, offshore wind, semiconductors. We want to look at, from the local level, who those employers are, who those businesses are, and really utilize our partners at the local area, the local workforce boards, which have been mentioned many times, our nonprofit partners, our community colleges and universities that are in those regions, to convene those employers and really listen to what it is that they need to be successful. And if we listen to that, then that really helps us, guides us on curriculum development and training needs, recruitment strategies. That's a big piece of it. And really, so we learn from it, but it also gives them a cohort to learn from each other. And that, I think, is one of the biggest benefits that comes out of it, just their own networking amongst themselves. And then beyond that, for talent development especially,
hearing from them about what the skills are needed for those jobs. And it's great to have it by industry because there's a lot of similarity among advanced manufacturing, even subsectors of advanced manufacturing. But the other industry sectors, as they talk about what skills they need, whether it's the low skill, mid-level skills, they're similar, but they're different. And it really does help guide us on how we approach that, how we recruit for them. And it really allows us to leverage what that partnership looks like and what the employers can contribute to the local economy in their region. So I would say that that's one of the most beneficial initiatives that we have.
So sort of the secret sauce is the partnership that we
It reaches.
into with
Secret
employers.
sauce is always related, yes, always.
Dr. Hart.
So Marquita, as you know, the mission of the Department of Commerce is to improve the economic well-being and quality of life of all North Carolinians. And the Office of Science, Technology, and Innovation does that by advancing science, technology, and innovation. And so science is just systematic knowledge. Technology is the practical application of that knowledge. And innovation is basically new things that add value. All of those are going to happen on their own. People naturally solve problems, systematize knowledge. There are problem solvers. But those things are going to happen much faster and much more efficiently and effectively when you have a strong, supportive innovation ecosystem. And so that's the first major activity that our office does, is tries to make sure that North Carolina has in place all the pieces that make that innovation ecosystem healthy and strong and vibrant. So if people have a new idea that can solve a problem, they can actually realize that and create a new technology, create a new company, possibly a whole new industry. We're here at Cisco today, and Cisco has not always been as big as it is. It was one time a small company. The second key activity that our office does is moving from the macro level, we move down to the kind of micro level and help individual small businesses develop new technologies and turn them into commercial products. And we do that primarily through giving them grants, and grants that they have earned by passing a high bar at the federal level through a competitive process to show that they have a new technology that has high commercial potential. So again, we work at the macro level and the micro level to try to help people create new things that add value.
And you've done a great job at that. So we're really pleased with some of the outcomes that we have. I know you have many great success stories. According to the Department of Commerce's Employer Survey Report, more than half of businesses experience difficulties filling at least one vacant position within their company. We know that when businesses offer strong, safe, inclusive, and healthy workplace, their turnover is reduced and employees are more productive. How do you help businesses recruit and retain talent? And Conrad,
Sure.
ask you that.
So, as many companies know, retention is much cheaper than recruitment. And happy employees create a very productive workforce. No one wants to go into work wondering when they're going to leave and just collecting a paycheck. I think it's really important for companies to realize that the happiness of an employee really impacts their bottom line. And so within Commerce, we've created something called the DEI checklist. Together with our DEI team led by Betty Marrow-Taylor, we've created a document that addresses many of these issues and reasons why companies struggle to retain talent and provide ideas of the different solutions that they could implement themselves. And this document was created with both small and large companies in mind. So it's a start of a conversation which we would love to have with these companies, because if there's any questions that they have, we're here to help and provide our assistance. We've worked on this document for quite some time. There was a lot of very difficult questions, but we finally are pretty much ready to launch this. And as Secretary mentioned, I would like to give a big shout out to Boomerang Design and Angie Crawford Easterday and her team, because they were there for our pilot program to make sure that we're asking the right questions. And they're a company that has approached us and are looking to do the right thing and be great corporate citizens for the state of North Carolina. So thank you, Angie and your team, and thank you to other companies here within the state that are looking to improve the state and make it the #1 state for business and our people. So thank you.
Dr. Harris.
That makes me think of a conversation that I have on a regular basis about what workforce development is. When you think of workforce development, most people go immediately to training. And there's the recruitment piece that is, you can train people all day long, but if you can't find the people, you can't train them. And so the recruitment piece is so critical in workforce development that often gets left out of the equation or the conversation. So I think there's 3 things at the Division of Workforce Solutions that we really look at, because as the state workforce agency, we have partners across the state, a network of partners, local workforce boards, community colleges, the universities, all of our workforce professionals that are located across the state that are specifically there for recruitment and retention initiatives. We have 80 plus NC Works career centers across the state with staff there that are career advisors. They are employer consultants. They are considered recruiters for those businesses. That staff is critical to recruitment and helpful with retention. And we have 20 local workforce boards. I know that Assistant Secretary Modershead mentioned that earlier. But they're the boots on the ground that do that recruitment. They evaluate what the labor pool looks like. They identify who's there, what the demographics are, and try to match that with what the employer is looking for. And one of the big the big push that we did during COVID when it was so hard to find employees was to look at the untapped labor pools, look at the veterans that are coming out of the military, former offenders that are coming out of the jail system and the prison system, and disabled workers that might need some ADA accommodations, but really look into that and see if that, making employers aware of what is needed, if there is anything needed, just making them knowledgeable about those labor pools so that they can hire, and making sure that they're willing to do that. A lot of cases we have a great relationship with the Department of Health and Human Services. My good friend Christy Brinson is my buddy there. So when we have employers that are looking for job seekers, like Lowe's Home Improvement Centers, the headquarters out of Charlotte, and their local stores are very willing and accepting of those untapped labor pools. And so we have a lot of successes to share there. We also, to retain talent, we also have the workforce staff at the local area that really work with the employers to look at what the jobs are that they're hiring for. I laugh about this, but the #1 workforce recruitment tool is right there in front of you on your plant floor, in the offices on your floor. It's your current employees. So if you've got them right there, so recruit them into a higher job. Ask them who their friends are that are looking for jobs. So they word of mouth is great. So that is the one thing that we mentioned. And then there's also, of course, training grants that are available to upskill current employees or to train new employees. And then the other thing is, a lot of companies, and we all know this when we were looking for jobs, they will post their jobs on their websites. And that's where we always went when we were looking for a job. There was a company we wanted to work for, we'd go to their website and we'd troll their jobs link. But that's not the case anymore, because you have to meet the employees where they are, the job seekers where they are. And if they're on LinkedIn, we all know LinkedIn and Indeed. NC Works Online is another job portal that our career centers use all the time and recruit jobs out of there. So making sure that they're using other avenues for reporting. And then the last thing is to really evaluate the recruiting and onboarding strategies and policies of the company. That has been something that I have fully enjoyed in my role, really looking at what their drug testing policies are. Lots of states are, lessening and legalizing things that maybe some companies are still testing for. And if it's legal, then do you really need to test for it? Depending on what the job is, of course. And then making sure that their salaries are competitive. You're not going to keep an employee or even recruit an employee if the salaries aren't competitive. Making sure the job descriptions are well written, that they're not outdated. outdated, that the technology is there for training. And then one of the big things is also making sure that their benefits match the demographics of their employee base. So if they have a whole lot of senior workers, make sure your health benefits are there. Make sure if you have younger workers, make sure there's childcare included. Things like that are a big piece of what our division and really our local workforce boards and our local partners work with the employers on.
And Jenny, how receptive have employers been to these alternative sources of labor that they had not traditionally looked at in the past?
Great question. They've been very receptive to it because everybody is looking for workers. And when you are traditionally doing the same thing over and over and it's worked, then that's great. But when you're in a labor market that we're in now, everybody's looking for alternative strategies. And so that really gives us an opportunity to encourage them to look at these other job seekers that we want to employ that can contribute to the economy in their local area and be good workers that will stay on for a long time.
That's great. Dr. Harden, the federal government recently announced funding opportunities that foster innovation. The CHIPS Act, CHIPS for America program, authorized by the CHIPS and Science Act, will provide funding opportunities for semiconductor suppliers and manufacturers. Additionally, the U.S. Economic Development Association recently announced the Regional Technology and Innovation Hubs program. Can you please describe how the state has prepared to support companies and organizations that apply for these funds?
Yes. So the CHIPS Act provides approximately $280 billion, that's billion with a B, of funding for several activities, but the two biggest are helping domestic semiconductor manufacturers produce more in the U.S. as well as create new semiconductor technologies. Right now, approximately 93% of the semiconductors that are in use in the U.S. are produced overseas. And when I look around this room, I can count hundreds of examples of where semiconductors are used right now. And so they're pervasive. And if they're made overseas to that large extent, that is a national security issue and an economic security issue. So the CHIPS Act funding provides through grants and through tax credits, incentives for companies to ramp up their domestic manufacturing of semiconductors. And they do that through a competitive grant process. Well, if you've ever applied for a federal grant, you know it's a very complicated process. Just understanding the requirements is hard. And so the Department of Commerce has set up a website. Just go to the Department of Commerce's website and in the search engine, type CHIPS, and up will come the website that has a lot of helpful information about whether you're eligible for the CHIPS Act funding, if you are eligible, how to apply, what other state resources can help you pursue that funding, all kinds of things that will make a difficult task a little bit easier. Not easy, but it'll really help those domestic manufacturers in North Carolina. That's just one avenue of funding. The other is through a brand new opportunity called the Regional Tech Hubs opportunity that is designed to help more regions, not just in North Carolina, but across the US, create technology hubs. If you think about the number of true technology hubs that are kind of worldwide known or known in the US, there's a handful. There's Silicon Valley, Research Triangle Park is one of those, the Austin region, Seattle, places like that. But that's a handful. Those areas are very prosperous. But there are many areas, most areas, that don't have those tech hubs. And so what the Regional Tech Hubs opportunity does is it makes available $10 billion of funding to seed more of these tech hubs out in the United States. And there's a competition right now. The deadline is August 15th for consortia across the US, including North Carolina, to submit proposals to the Economic Development Administration for why they should be designated as a tech hub. And again, that's a very complicated, detailed process. And there are several consortia right now in North Carolina as we speak. and maybe as we're sleeping too, working on these proposals, and they need help. And the Department of Commerce has a lot of data that can help them. We also can be a bridge builder. We see one consortium over in the western part of the state and another consortium in the eastern part of the state wanting to work on similar things, but they don't know it, and so we can be a connector. And so we also have a website on the Department of Commerce's website. If you just go to the search engine and type regional tech hubs, that will come up. And again, a whole host of useful information. If somebody is interested in pursuing a tech hub, they can find the information there.
So you heard it from Dr. Hart. Go to the North Carolina Department of Commerce website if you're interested in that. Thank you, Dr. Hart. I know we only have a couple of minutes, so I'm going to ask each of you, what is your top priority or one key message that you would leave with our audience today? Conrad.
The key message for our audience today would be, if you need help, please feel free to reach out. We're here to help. I mean, as John said, we foster partnerships, we have workforce experts, and we have wonderful tools at our disposal to help you succeed here in North Carolina. So please don't hesitate. I'll keep it short and brief. Please don't hesitate and call and reach out to us, because that's what we are here for.
Thank you, Conrad. Jenny.
Mine is similar. Communicate. If you have any questions, even if you don't have questions but you have concerns, reach out to Commerce. Reach out to your local workforce board, your local career center. There are so many resources available that are free for the employers, and it's just making them aware of it.
Thank you, John.
Dr. Harris and Conrad took the two good answers. So my answer is that it's a little different. It's don't be afraid to try something new. And that's because while economists disagree on a lot, one thing that they do agree on is that innovation, new things that add value, really drive the economy. 40 to 50% of economic growth over time is due to new things. And don't be afraid to step out there and try to develop something new. There are actually a lot of resources out there to help people do that. And you can make the world a better place and also grow your local economy and the world economy by doing that. So don't be afraid.
All right, you heard it. Be fearless.
That's right.
Reach out and ask questions. We're here to help. Thank you. Thanks to each of you. Now what I want to do is say we will hear a special message from two of our key stakeholders. So,
hello, I am Ariel Ford. I am the Director for the Division of Child Development and Early Education in the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. And I am here today to share a little bit about how amazing is not the right word, something more than amazing our early childhood system is in North Carolina, and the impact that they have had over the last 3 years and what we can do together in the future. So as we know, the pandemic was disruptive for all of us in many ways. Schools were closed, college kids were coming home, but I'm going to tell you that our early childhood educators stayed open so that our essential workers, our firefighters, our nurses, our military personnel could go to work and be ready to serve our state. Our child care providers helped their families with a number of services. They helped their teachers make sure that their teachers had care for their own children, that they had resources to support their own families. And while the country has lost 8% of our early childhood teaching workforce because of the tireless efforts of directors and owners across our state, like Ms. Yates here, North Carolina has lost less than 1% of our early childhood teachers. Now, how did that come about? I will tell you that there has been a historic investment in early childhood education since the start of the pandemic. $1.9 billion has been put into North Carolina's early childhood system. And when we, the department, went to our child care providers and said, what do you need? What do you need this money to do for you? They told us three things. They said, we need to support our business. We've got cleaning companies. We've taken out loans. We've taken out credit card debt. They said, we need to help our families because it's hard out there right now and we need to help our families. And the third thing they said is, we've got to pay our teachers. Our teachers can make more going down the street to Sheetz. They can make more going down the street to Target. They love being teachers, and I want to pay them what they're worth so they can stay in the classroom. And that's what they've done. And North Carolina is faring better than our country because of the tireless work of our owners, operators, the teachers who care about their children. And what we have given back to them, or what we are giving back currently, is a diverse way for them to encourage their workforce, grow the workforce, diverse ways for them to engage with higher education. And a couple of examples, you already heard about the apprenticeships, which are awesome. We also have a credit for prior learning program that's going through the community college system, where teachers who have been in the classroom for 20 years, but higher education was never on their radar, they can get credit for some of the time they've spent in the classroom. They can go back to school and get ahead of the game just because they have learned so much from their mentor teachers, their directors. Another thing we're doing, we have become part of what they call Military Childcare in Your Neighborhood Plus. I will tell you that I have gone to speak with the the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs, and what they have said to me is, our people do not have office jobs. They don't have their cell phone sitting on their desk, so if something happens during the day, they can go pick up their children. They put their cell phone in a locker, and they have to know and trust that those babies are going to be safe, loved, taken care of, and educated, preparing them for their next steps in lives with no worry in their minds or hearts before they can go get them at the end of the day. Early childhood education is absolutely the backbone of North Carolina's economy. As long as our early childhood education system is strong, and we've invested for 3 decades in early childhood, I fully expect that we will continue this path forward. North Carolina's economy can stay strong. So I want to pass it over to a really wonderful partner, a really amazing early childhood advocate and educator, Arlene Yates with the Learning Center of Perquimans County.
Thank you, Ms. Ford, and I thank you for having me here today, giving me this opportunity. And I would like to say early childhood is very important in our rural community. We're a small community, a small center. I do house 58 children that I can serve from birth to 12 years old. And during the pandemic, we got a stabilization grant, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. That helped me to stay open, to keep my doors open. It helped me to keep qualified teachers there. Because as you know, you want to make sure your child is taken well care of throughout the day, so you don't have to worry, like Ms. Ford stated. We also had a chance to do things to the business, like buying equipment, expanding your playground, even doing painting, even doing the floors, just getting things up to date that you didn't have money to do. Childcare, you did not make a lot of money, so this really came into play with that. Also, we had to increase the staff salary. We gave them bonuses. That really helped us to keep our staff there, our qualified teachers there. And also with the community, the children, was able to get them new toys. They were so excited to play with new playground toys, even going out seeing their beautiful smile. When they go on the playground, they are so wonderful, happy, cheerful. They got new toys to play with. Now, when it comes to the community for the stabilization grant, I was able to help my families. And I'm going to give you one example of how I help a family. This young lady had 2 children, 1 6, 1 8. And her child care has stopped. And before she told me, she said, Miss Yates, if I don't have child care, I can't work, I'm gonna lose my home. So I told her it was not about the money, it's about helping each other out. As North Carolinians, that's what we have to do. With this grant, I was able to let her move back in with her mother, take care of her children while she worked. While she worked, she found a great job. She got a car now. And she got her own house now. Without me helping her, she wouldn't have that. She would have been homeless with 2 kids. So I'm ever so grateful for this grant. She came back, she hugged me. I'm so happy for her. That just blessed my heart to know that I helped her. And this is one of the ways the grants have helped us to keep our doors open after the pandemic. Most of the times, if you didn't know we were going to make it, it was up and down. But with this grant, it has helped us a lot. And this is one other example I can give. But I want to say to all of you, anything you can do for early childhood child care, please do it. It's critical that we stay open, that we take care of your kids with good quality teachers, because we need them. And we also need some extra money, okay? All right, thank you.
So as you can tell, when we think about essential infrastructure, we know that K-12 schools are an a really important component of that, but our early childhood system is equally important to maintaining our North Carolina strong infrastructure, strong business community. So with that, thank you for the chance to be here, and we are going to turn it over to Chief Deputy Secretary Jordan Wichard, who's going to introduce the community panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Ariel, for the work you're doing to support the governor's goal to expand access to childcare across North Carolina in every county. And thank you, Arlene, so much for the high quality early childhood education that you provide the children of Perquimans County, and for sharing your experiences with us today. As somebody who has kids just transitioning from early childhood to elementary school, I'm so grateful for the work that you all do for our kids in North Carolina every day. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jordan Wichard. As Ariel mentioned, I'm the Chief Deputy Secretary at the Department of Commerce. I'm really excited to be moderating this panel today, where we're going to discuss the First in Talent goal to prepare our communities in North Carolina to be more competitive in growing and attracting the talented workforce that we need to continue growing in North Carolina, and the businesses that we need to continue keeping North Carolina as competitive as possible. Specifically, we'll focus on strategy 10, maximizing the benefits of improved broadband access by advancing high-speed internet adoption and digital skills for North Carolina's businesses and workforce. Governor Cooper recently awarded $80 million to give more North Carolinians high-speed internet access across 33 counties, and we're lucky to be joined by Emily Ganji, who is the Policy Director for DIT's Division of Broadband and Digital Equity, with us today. And Emily will highlight how North Carolina DIT supports the governor's broadband expansion goals. We're also going to focus on strategy 12 from the First in Talent plan, which supports local efforts to expand the physical infrastructure needed to attract workers and businesses to communities. Governor Cooper recommended investments of $100 million in mega site preparation in his budget proposal this year, and continued support for mega site readiness and smaller site readiness across the state at the levels the governor has recommended is really vital to ensuring that we have the products in the state and the necessary infrastructure to keep us well positioned to attract employers large and small to North Carolina. We believe that additional investments are needed in that program, and that we also continue catering to our rural communities that also need that access desperately. Last year, communities across the state were positively impacted by programs run by Commerce's Rural Economic Development Division, led by Kenny Flowers, Assistant Secretary for Rural Economic Development at the Department of Commerce. Kenny's office administers programs like the Rural Transformation Grant Fund, which has provided grants to local governments across the state for things like downtown revitalization, the Resilient Neighborhood Program, and rural community capacity building. Last year, through our rural grants programs, we awarded over $113 million to support the creation of 4,200 jobs in rural communities across North Carolina, and we are excited to partner and to continue that good work. We'll also discuss additional programs housed in the rural division to build capacity to support economic growth. We're joined online with our great broadband connection by David Eisenhower, the Executive Director of the Alexander County Economic Development Corporation, joining us virtually. And David will help highlight Alexander County's partnership with the Rural Division at Commerce and some of our federal programs. And finally, we're pleased to be joined by Angela Watkins-Gaillard, the Director of Programs at the North Carolina Golden Leaf Foundation. Commerce and Golden Leaf are frequent flyers together and frequent partners across the state to develop sites and recruit new businesses. Angela, in a few minutes, will highlight their programs and our partnership around infrastructure development. So thank you all for being here today in person, and David online. Really appreciate your partnership and support. So I want to start with a question for everybody that's in the room with us. And David, I promise I won't forget about you online. But for Emily and Angela and Kenny, can you each just discuss briefly your organization's programs that prepare communities across the state for success? Last year, communities from Murphy to Manio benefited from new investments in the physical infrastructure, in necessary resources to expand broadband, affordability, to build community capacity for economic development. So could each of you just share briefly your ideas and the work that your agencies do? And Emily, we'll start with you in broadband.
Thank you, Jordan, for hosting us this afternoon. And we're grateful that broadband access and digital equity skills are a component of the First in Talent strategic plan. And we're grateful for the partnership that we have with you all. And I want to congratulate you on being First in Talent for the last 2 years in our nation. That's wonderful. As Jordan mentioned, we know that there are approximately 1 million households in North Carolina who are on the wrong side of the digital divide, meaning they either don't have internet access, they can't afford the access that they do have, or they don't have the devices and skills that they need to participate in our digital economy. And so Governor Cooper has made that a priority of his administration, as you all know, and he and the General Assembly allocated $1 billion, as John said earlier, that's with a B, from our American Rescue Plan Act funds that the state received from the federal government toward closing that digital divide and to get internet to more households and businesses in North Carolina who don't have it. And we all, if there's a silver lining of the pandemic, and there aren't many, it feels like, but one of them is that if people weren't aware how important internet access and digital skills are before the pandemic, they're intimately aware now after what we all went through. So as Jordan mentioned, we've been awarding great grants, and we just awarded the last of $350 million from the American Rescue Plan Act. So that'll serve 144,000 locations. So those are homes and businesses in North Carolina that don't currently have adequate internet access. And those awards are being invested in 93 of our 100 counties. So we're really proud of the impact that those funds will have. And we're also proud of the private investment that was leveraged. So since this is a commerce panel, I have to point out that that public investment of $350 million leveraged an additional $180 million of private investment in those projects and to serve those communities. It's also important because I mentioned some folks have access, but they can't afford it. So as part of our grant investments, we require that internet service providers who receive those grants participate in the Affordable Connectivity Program, which is a federal benefit that provides a subsidy for low-income households to subscribe to the internet each month, or that they offer a similar program, a low-cost program, to meet those affordability goals as well. So if you remember, I said 1 billion, so we've got some more to go. So we're going to be launching our CAB program, Completing Access to Broadband, this fall. And that one's different. County governments are really excited about that one because with the great grants, the internet service providers come to us with projects and apply for the funds. They're choosing the locations. But with the Completing Access to Broadband program, it'll be the county governments choosing the areas in their county that are unserved and underserved who are eligible and prioritizing which areas, and they'll be investing their local funds in those projects as well. And then the providers will bid on those projects. And then the last one is stopgap solutions. So that's $90 million that'll go to those especially hard to reach places that we haven't been able to reach through those first two programs I mentioned.
That's really exciting, Emily. Thanks. Angela, tell us a little bit about Golden Leaf and how your programs complement that and invest in physical infrastructure.
So for those of you who may not be familiar with Golden Leaf, the mission of the foundation is long-term economic advancement in rural communities across the entire state of North Carolina. And the way that we do that is we support projects with outcomes that focus on job creation, economic investment, workforce preparedness, and agricultural outcomes. And we have several programs through which we fund those projects. If you go to our website, you'll see several listed. I'll highlight three for our purposes of our discussion today. The first is our Open Grants Program, which is called the Open Grants Program because it's literally open all year long. So you can apply at any point. Eligible entities are welcome to go to our website and apply at any point for the Open Grants Program. The next is our Economic Catalyst Program, and that's the program where we partner very, very closely with Department of Commerce on major projects that are coming to the state of North Carolina. And then the final program is the SITE program, which I'll talk about a little bit more in depth a little later, but that's where we help communities identify, prepare, and develop sites to have available for new and expanding businesses to come into their communities. And so these are just a few of the ways that we partner with rural communities for economic advancement in their area. And we do that in partnership with many entities across the state, some of which are on panel with me here today.
Thanks, Angela. Kenny, what are you guys up to, the Rural Economic Development Division?
All right, Jordan, thanks so much. The Rural Economic Development Division, you know us as Team Red. We are really excited about the products and services that we have to offer rural communities. We're charged with building some really strong partnerships with rural communities that support economic growth and prosperity. And it starts with a really strong team. You know, our Rural Economic Development Division staff has been amazing in terms of advancing the commerce mission, but also really focusing on building some strong partnerships with our communities. We call them partnerships with Dept that kind of go beyond any specific project or grant that we're working on. And that's important to establishing that relationship so we can understand and be more responsive to our communities. We are fortunate to have a number of targeted grant and engagement programs that allow us to do that. We are focused on building those bridges with consistent investments in rural infrastructure, downtown revitalization, and Main Street development, housing programs, rural health, capacity building, and then investing in some very important projects that we know help bring jobs and investments to communities. Secretary Sanders and Jordan mentioned earlier that we invested about $113 million through our grant programs last year, and that's super important. It brings our two-year total to about $240 million in grants that are super important to our rural communities. But just as important are those engagement programs. We provided 500 communities in North Carolina support that brought about training and technical assistance, strategic planning, educational programming, economic development planning that really makes a difference in helping build capacity so that communities are ready for those economic engagements and opportunities when they arise. We believe that consistent investment in our rural communities is one of the reasons that North Carolina has back-to-back national championships as it relates to the best place to do business in the country. Readiness makes a difference, and our programs, we believe, help make communities ready for those opportunities when they arise.
Thanks so much, Kenny. Really appreciate everybody's overview of their programs. Emily, I want to focus a little bit on broadband first. You mentioned a lot of programs and a lot of dollars. Obviously, Governor Cooper has made broadband expansion and digital equity a priority for North Carolina. As you guys grade those different programs and all these really once-in-a-lifetime funding opportunities from the American Rescue Plan Act and the bipartisan infrastructure law, how is your office and NCDIT making all of that work together and sort of meeting this moment that we have before us?
Yeah. So when you're dealing with billions of dollars, it takes a lot of planning and a lot of coordination with our fellow state agencies and with local governments and nonprofit organizations and the internet service providers. And we're grateful for all those partnerships. In addition to investing all of those American Rescue Plan funds for the last 6 months, we've been doing a lot of planning to get ready for the bipartisan infrastructure laws, investments in broadband through the U.S. Department of Commerce. And so we've been doing a lot of stakeholder engagement and a lot of data gathering and also challenging the Federal Communications Commission's maps that indicate which locations in our state have broadband service and at what speeds, so that we know which locations will be eligible for that infrastructure funding. We're grateful for all the folks who helped us to submit challenges and to educate residents in their communities about the challenge process. And we submitted thousands of challenges on behalf of residents in North Carolina. And as a result, we added more eligible locations to the FCC map from version 1 to version 2 than any other state in the nation. And that resulted in real dollars because our allocation from the bipartisan infrastructure law is based on that mapping. And so our allocation from the BEAD program, which is part of the bipartisan infrastructure law, was $1.5 billion, a B again. And that's $350 million more than what had been projected before we added those additional locations. So I want to shout out all the people who submitted challenges to help us make the data more accurate. So we're submitting our strategic plan to the federal government this week for those funds. And then we'll be working on a more tactical proposal that's due in December, where we really lay out how we're going to achieve universal access for all of North Carolina's households and businesses. And I have to mention that we have a workforce component. So folks from the Department of Commerce are joining. We've got a cross-sector committee that's helping us develop a broadband workforce plan so that we make sure North Carolina has the broadband workforce that we need to actually implement all of these investments, because this is a huge infusion of cash in our state. And our best projections are that 4,500 jobs will be created, in addition to the usual jobs that are turnover in this sector. So we've got some work to do there too.
It's going to take a team effort, no question, to make sure that we not only fund all this broadband, but get it built and make sure that it's installed. So, you know, the future of North Carolina is going to need to be connected and have broadband, but we're also going to need solid infrastructure across the state so that people have good places to live and especially work. So, Angela, I want to talk a little bit about Golden Leaf Site Program and the investments that you're making in rural and economically distressed communities across the state. How does that complement other site readiness programs in North Carolina, and how does the site program help form a good pipeline for the certified sites program that Commerce operates and that we all rely on?
Great question. I appreciate that question. So the site program, similar to the FIT program, is only 2 years old. The Golden Leaf Board recognized a need for communities to have sites available to be able to market for businesses to be attracted to that community to come. You all probably heard a lot about product availability, right? Having sites available to attract businesses to the state and to those communities. And so that's the purpose of the site program. It has 3 different phases in which we help communities. The first is identification. And in the identification phase, we are helping communities identify potential sites in that county. There are some communities that don't have any sites available at all to market for businesses to attract them to their community. And so we have a team of consultants that will come in, do exploration of your community via GIS and other information that they'll gather regarding available infrastructure, workforce, and lay out for you what the potential development plan is for potential sites in your community. The second phase is due diligence. And that is once you have identified a site in your community, completing the due diligence activities that are needed to make sure that site is indeed a viable site for development. And this is, Jordan, where it can align really well as a pipeline to the certification program from the Department of Commerce. That is, that certification program is going to require you to have certain items completed, and Golden Leaf is a great partner in helping you getting those items funded and completed to certify your site. And then the final phase for our program is development. And that is where we will partner with that eligible entity to run infrastructure to that site, whether it's water infrastructure or sewer infrastructure for publicly controlled sites. And then for publicly owned sites, we will help clear and grade the site so that it's more marketable. We will help you remediate any environmental concerns for the site. We will help you stub and access road into the site, do things that will develop that site to make it more marketable and attractive for businesses. And that can be new businesses coming to the community or existing businesses in your community that have a need to expand. And so those are some of the ways that we partner with communities in that particular program, the site program. Again, as Jordan indicated, we like to leverage other programs. There are lots of different entities across the state that have support for site development and site preparation. North Carolina Railroad, and several different entities. And so we like to see our funds leveraged against those other funds, as well as Jordan indicated, a pipeline to those other certification programs, as our program is not a certification program, but we do partner with you to help you get your site ready for certification.
That's a great program, Angela. Thanks for sharing about it. And then we love when sites come to us that have been assisted by Golden Leaf, because we know they're going to be ready and able to be certified. So David, I promised I wouldn't forget about you. And so for Kenny and David, I want to talk about a program that we both have really relied on in recent years, the Appalachian Regional Commission program, which is coordinated out of the Rural Economic Development Division. It's been recently joined by the Southeast Crescent Commission. So Kenny, if you could sort of give us an overview of those programs and how they work across the state and how we leverage them. And then David, if you could sort of hone in specifically on how Alexander County has partnered with Commerce to and benefited from our ARC program. But Kenny, let's start with you.
Thanks, Jordan. And what we do is really try and leverage our programs together to have the broadest impact across rural North Carolina. And we have multiple programs within our division, both state and federal, that are super important. A lot of the pieces look alike sometimes, but layered together really help projects move forward. Our federal programs are CDBG, Community Development Block Grant Program, and Appalachian Regional Commission. Our other programming at the state level is our rural grant programs, our Industrial Development Fund utility account, our Main Street and Rural Planning Program. And then Jordan mentioned a new Southeast Crescent Regional Commission that will be a part of our portfolio soon. As a matter of fact, there's a grant window open now for pre-applications for the initial programming for SCRC. But Appalachian Regional Commission is a legacy program, as we call it. It's been around since 1965 and really an important resource to communities in the 31 westernmost counties. We have about $14.5 million each year that we make available for, again, projects and engagements that look a lot like other programs across our division, for infrastructure, to support our workforce, to build leadership capacity, to build local government capacity, to support local rural health initiatives. And it leans very heavily into the partnership piece and collaboration. You've heard that a couple times today, and it's really important. If we're leveraging pieces together that have the greatest impacts, we need those strong partnerships with Dept that allow us to do that. And ARC is a perfect example of that, partnering with our local governments, our nonprofit partners, community colleges, our regional councils of government, and that's an important piece of the ARC puzzle. Alexander County is a great example of how that partnership works, and we'll hear from David now to talk about that.
Okay, but thank you, Kenny, and thanks to all of you. It's a real honor to be on this panel, and I'm very pleased to be billed as an ARC partner. And we've heard a lot about partnerships today, and it is very important in economic development, of course. The ARC projects that I've been involved in Alexander County really have been hitting on the major building blocks for economic development, such as employment training, broadband access, road construction even, and wastewater expansion. Just over the years that I've been involved in it, the projects that I've seen ARC funding in, the total is about $3 million in ARC funding. And that's just projects that I've personally been involved in. But that $3 million in Alexander County has leveraged about $30 million in private investment and created or retained about 750 jobs. And a lot of our focus has been in the Alexander Industrial Park, which you see behind me. And ARC funding there has been very critical. Within the park itself, we've had wastewater projects funded by ARC that are responsible for allowing our industries to expand by a total of 200,000 square feet. We have another 70,000 square feet that's going to break ground this month. We have a 16-acre graded rail site that has just been completed, and that'll accommodate another 300,000 square feet. And of course, I have to stop for a second and say thanks to Angela and Golden Leaf, because we did use the site program to grade that 16 acres along with North Carolina Railroad. And so that's another example of the great partnerships that we've heard about today. But you know, that rail site in itself is great, but it would not be nearly as attractive if it didn't have wastewater availability. So here again, we're about to release bids for another wastewater expansion, which is also funded in part by ARC. Finally, we had a road extension within the park, and that's a unique project for economic development agencies, but that park desperately needed a new entrance, which was a safety factor for traffic, and it also opened up additional industrial sites, which will accommodate another 300,000 square feet of building space. So, and again, the broadband that was mentioned, we ran a broadband project through this office as a pilot program to begin with, and it really just brought the attention to the fact that Alexander County was so underserved. That program moved from the nonprofit into county government realm, but it has continued to grow and really got a lot of attention from other providers who at first weren't paying a lot of attention to us. So that has been a wonderful aspect of this as well. And I think it's just overall good examples again of what we can accomplish in rural America through all these partnerships, and my greatest appreciation to ARC and to all the funding partners for helping us level the playing field in rural America. I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, thanks, David. And before we pass it back to Jordan, I do want to mention Olivia Collier, our ARC director, who does a great job of building those partnerships that we talk about that really connect our communities there, and it makes a difference. Olivia will also head up our new Southeast Crescent Regional Commission. It will cover the remaining 69 states that ARC does not cover, and will offer similar programming. I mentioned that we have a grant window open for the first round of resources that will come out from SCRC. So visit our website, the Commerce website, to take a look at that and see if you might be interested. But David, thank you so much. We really appreciate you joining us.
You.
Agree. Thanks, Kenny. Thanks, David, so much for your partnership in Alexander County. And Kenny makes a great point. I want to thank all of our teams at the Department of Commerce in Red and in the Rural Economic Development Division and in LEAD and at our Division of Employment Security who really make all of this work, all the other employees of the Department of Commerce who collaborate with all of these different partners that you've heard from today, every day, and help make this work. So let me thank our panelists. Really appreciate you all joining today. And let me also thank Secretary Sanders for bringing this group together, for your leadership and the First in Talent statewide economic development plan. I think it's been a remarkable 2-year journey to help lay some of this out. And so with that, I'll turn it over to you for some closing remarks.
Thank you, Jordan, and to all the panelists, thank you. Thank all of you today, our moderators, panelists, and thank you to Cisco for hosting us here today. And I want to send a special thanks and shout out to all the employees of the Department of Commerce. It is because of your hard work, your commitment to our mission, that we continue to have the results that we have, and that I continue to remain so proud and grateful to work for a team like you. Moving forward, Governor Cooper, the Commerce team, and I will continue to prioritize workforce development training and the partnerships that we have across the state, and hoping to have new ones that will begin and flourish. So we will continue to advocate for investments in public education and workforce, and for our caregivers, that workforce especially. We will continue to partner with stakeholders, our local government, the stakeholders and partners you heard from today, our community college system, the university system, and all of those who work with us on a daily basis. We will continue to focus on business recruitment efforts, on clean energy industry like offshore wind, which you heard about today, in an effort to support the governor's goal of reducing the carbon emissions 70% by 2030. And as the leader of the Department of Commerce, you can count on me. I will remain committed to be a fierce advocate for North Carolina, a fierce advocate for a stronger and better North Carolina, and one that works for all the residents of the state. And we will do that work together through the strategies that are in the First in Talent plan, and by continuing to put forward our promises that we can deliver on for truly enabling a better quality of life for all the residents of our state. And with that, and along with all the partners here today and all the partners across the state, we will work so that we can continue and remain the best state in the nation to do business, the best place in the nation to live for families and for people to thrive and to enjoy all the possibilities of a future that I believe we're all long overdue and promised to have, with hard work, diligence, togetherness, unity, and faith. And so with that being said, thank you. We look forward to continuing to execute on our plans and our strategy, and we look forward to continuing to remain the best state in the nation to do business. Thank you all and have a good day.